There's a moment in every empath's life when they realize they've been living for everyone except themselves. And that moment, that precise instant of recognition, is when everything begins to fall apart. Or perhaps, when everything finally begins to come together. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow, but for empaths it's something far more complex. It's the realization that the gift you thought you had, this ability to feel everything, to sense the pain in a room before anyone speaks, to carry the weight of other people's emotions like they're your own, wasn't a gift at all. It was a survival mechanism you developed so early in life that you forgot it wasn't natural. You forgot there was another way to live. Most people will never understand this. They'll look at you and see someone who cares too much, someone who's too sensitive, someone who needs to toughen up. But what they don't see is the architecture of your inner world, the way you've constructed an entire existence around the feelings and needs of others while your own self, your true self, has been locked away in a room you've forgotten how to enter. Jung believed that we all wear masks, what he called the persona. But for empaths, the mask isn't just a social nicety. It's a fortress. It's the only way you learn to survive in a world that felt too loud, too harsh, too overwhelming. And here's what nobody tells you about being an empath. The 3 stages you're going to move through in your lifetime aren't just phases of growth. They're initiations. Each one will strip away a layer of who you thought you were, and each one will ask you to die a small death before you can be reborn into something more authentic, more whole, more aligned with your soul's true purpose. The first stage will seduce you with the illusion of love. The second stage will break you open in ways you never imagined possible. And the third stage, the one that most people never reach, will transform you into something that exists between worlds, neither fully here nor fully there, but somehow more alive than you've ever been. I'm going to walk you through these 3 hidden stages, and as I do, I want you to ask yourself where you are right now, because recognition is the first step toward liberation. You might be someone who's just beginning to sense that something isn't right, that the way you've been living isn't sustainable anymore. Or you might be someone who's deep in the darkness, wondering if you'll ever find your way out. Or perhaps you're someone who's already tasted freedom but keeps getting pulled back into old patterns, old wounds, old ways of being that no longer serve you. Wherever you are, this is your invitation to witness yourself with compassion, to understand that your journey is not a mistake, and to recognize that what you're moving through has a sacred purpose. So let me ask you this, and I really want you to think about it. When was the first moment you realized you were carrying emotions that didn't belong to you? The first stage begins long before you have words for it. It begins in childhood, in those formative years when your nervous system is still learning how to interpret the world. Jung talked about the collective unconscious, this vast reservoir of human experience that we're all connected to. But for empaths, the connection runs deeper, more raw, more unfiltered. You were the child who knew when your mother was sad, even when she was smiling. You were the one who could feel the tension in your father's body from across the room. You absorbed everything, the spoken and the unspoken, the visible and the invisible, and you learned very quickly that your value, your worth, your very right to exist, depended on your ability to manage those energies. This is what Jung called the false self, but I prefer to think of it as the borrowed self, because in this first stage, you're not really living your own life. You're living a life constructed from the needs, expectations, and emotional states of everyone around you. You become a shapeshifter, constantly adjusting yourself to fit whatever the moment requires. Your mother needs someone to confide in, so you become her therapist. Your father needs someone to be proud of, so you become the achiever. Your siblings need someone to lean on, so you become the caretaker. Your friends need someone who always says yes, so you become the one who never has boundaries. And the cruelest part of this stage is that it feels like love. It feels noble and pure and selfless. You look around and you see people who are selfish, people who only think about themselves, and you feel grateful that you're not like them. You feel superior in your ability to sacrifice, to give, to put others first. But what you don't realize, what you can't realize yet, is that this isn't love at all. It's a trauma response. It's what happens when a highly sensitive child learns that their emotional survival depends on keeping everyone else emotionally regulated. You learned to abandon yourself before anyone else could abandon you. You learned to reject your own needs before anyone else could reject them, and you called it virtue. Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In this first stage, you are completely unconscious of what you're doing and why you're doing it. You have no idea that you're operating from a deep wound, a primal fear that if you stop performing, if you stop giving, if you stop being what everyone needs you to be, you will be left alone. And aloneness, for an empath in this stage, feels like death. So you keep going. You keep giving. You keep absorbing everyone's pain and confusion and chaos, and you keep telling yourself that this is who you are, this is your purpose, this is your gift. But deep down, in a place you're not ready to look at yet, something is starting to whisper. Something is starting to say that this isn't sustainable, that you're losing yourself, that there has to be another way. The relationships you form in this first stage are a mirror of your inner fragmentation. You attract people who need fixing, people who are broken in ways that feel familiar to you, people who will take everything you offer and never think to ask what you might need in return. And you don't mind. In fact, you prefer it this way. Because if they never ask about you, you never have to confront the terrifying truth that you don't actually know who you are beneath all this giving. You don't know what you want, what you need, what you desire, because you've spent so long focused on everyone else that your own inner landscape has become a foreign country. Jung called this the anima or animus, the contrasexual aspect of the psyche that we project onto others in our search for wholeness. But for empaths, the projection is even more complex. You're not just looking for your other half, you're looking for someone who will finally see you, who will finally recognize all that you're doing and give you the love and validation you've been desperately seeking your entire life. But here's the painful truth. The people you attract in this stage are incapable of seeing you. They're too lost in their own wounds, their own needs, their own unconscious patterns. And so you end up in relationships where you're constantly trying to earn love that will never come. Constantly trying to prove your worth to people who will never truly value you, because the love you're seeking can only come from one place, and that place is within yourself. This is when you might find yourself in relationships with narcissists, with emotional vampires, with people who seem to drain you of every ounce of energy you have. And you stay because leaving feels impossible. You stay because you believe that if you just try harder, if you just love them better, if you just understand them more deeply, they will change. They will see you. They will finally give you what you need. But they won't. They can't. Because the entire relationship is built on an unconscious contract that you've made. You will be the giver, and they will be the taker. You will be the one who adapts, and they will be the one who stays the same. You will be the one who carries the emotional weight, and they will be the one who remains unburdened. And the saddest part of this stage is how long it can last. Years, decades, an entire lifetime even. Because the pain of staying in this pattern, as excruciating as it is, feels safer than the terror of stepping into the unknown. The terror of finally asking yourself what would happen if you stopped performing, stopped giving, stopped being everything to everyone. What would be left? Who would you be? And would anyone love that person? Then something happens. It's different for everyone, but it always comes. A betrayal. A breakdown. A moment of such profound exhaustion that you simply cannot continue living the way you've been living. Jung called this the dark night of the soul. But for empaths, it's more than that. It's a complete dismantling of everything you thought you knew about yourself, about love, about life, about why you're here. The second stage has begun, and there is no going back. This stage is characterized by a descent into the underworld of your own psyche. All the feelings you've been absorbing from others, all the emotions you've been suppressing in yourself, all the pain and rage and grief and disappointment that you've been pushing down for years, maybe decades, comes flooding to the surface. And it's overwhelming. It's terrifying. It feels like you're drowning in your own darkness. And no matter how hard you try to claw your way back to the surface, back to the person you used to be, you can't. That person is gone. That version of you who could smile through the pain, who could keep giving even when you had nothing left, who could convince yourself that everything was fine, has died. And you don't know yet who will be born in their place. Jung believed that the descent into the unconscious was necessary for individuation, for becoming a whole and integrated person. But he also knew that this process was dangerous, that many people get lost in the darkness and never find their way out. For empaths in this second stage, the danger is real. You might fall into deep depression. You might develop anxiety that makes it hard to leave your house. You might turn to substances or behaviors that numb the pain because the pain feels too big to bear. You might push everyone away because you finally realize that the people you've been giving to were never really there for you in the first place. And the loneliness, the isolation, the sense that you're completely alone in the world becomes almost unbearable. But here's what you need to understand about this stage. The darkness is not your enemy. The pain is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. This is the necessary destruction that precedes rebirth. Jung said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and for empaths, the pain of the second stage is the price of awakening. You are shedding the false self, the borrowed self, the self that was constructed to please others and keep you safe. And in its place, slowly, painfully, often in ways that feel like you're dying, your true self is beginning to emerge. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this question. What part of yourself have you been keeping hidden because you were afraid no one would love it? In the second stage, you begin the painful work of reclaiming your shadow. Jung defined the shadow as all the parts of ourselves that we've repressed, denied, or disowned because they didn't fit with the image we wanted to present to the world. For empaths, the shadow is vast and complex, because you've spent so long absorbing everyone else's darkness that you've lost touch with your own. You've been so focused on other people's anger that you haven't acknowledged your own rage. You've been so attuned to other people's needs that you haven't recognized your own desires. You've been so busy healing everyone else that you haven't given yourself permission to be broken. The shadow work of the second stage requires you to look at the parts of yourself you've been most ashamed of. Your selfishness, your resentment, your jealousy, your need for recognition, your desire to be seen and valued and appreciated. All the things you've labeled as bad or wrong or unspiritual, all the things you've tried to transcend through your giving and your sacrifice, come rushing to the surface, and you realize that they're not bad at all. They're human. They're natural. They're the parts of you that have been screaming for attention while you've been too busy attending to everyone else. This is also the stage where you begin to understand the difference between empathy and codependency. You thought you were being empathetic, but you were actually being codependent. You thought you were helping others, but you were actually enabling their dysfunction while ignoring your own. You thought you were loving, but you were actually trying to control outcomes so you could feel safe and valued. Jung would say you were operating from your wounded child, the part of you that never got the love and security it needed, and was now desperately trying to get those needs met through external validation. The books start piling up on your nightstand. Jung's works, of course. Books on boundaries, on self-love, on healing from childhood trauma, on understanding narcissistic abuse, on reclaiming your power. You devour them like someone who's been starving for truth their entire life. And in a way you have been. Each book is a mirror reflecting back to you aspects of your experience that you thought were unique to you, but you're learning that you're not alone. There are thousands, maybe millions of people who have walked this path before you, who have felt what you're feeling, who have survived what you're surviving. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to feel less crazy, less broken, less alone. But the second stage doesn't end quickly. It can last years. You might think you've figured it out, that you've done the work, that you're ready to move forward, only to find yourself right back in the darkness again. Jung called this the spiral of growth, where we revisit the same wounds at deeper and deeper levels, each time integrating more of ourselves, each time becoming more whole. For empaths, this spiral can feel endless, like you're going in circles, like you'll never really be free. But then, gradually, something begins to shift. You start to notice that you're not collapsing under the weight of other people's emotions anymore. You start to recognize when someone is trying to hand you their pain, and instead of automatically absorbing it, you pause. You create space. You realize that you can be compassionate without taking on someone else's burden. You can love someone without losing yourself. You can say no without being cruel. And these small shifts, these tiny moments of choosing yourself, begin to accumulate into something larger, something that feels like solid ground beneath your feet for the first time in your life. This is the beginning of the third stage, the stage of integration and empowerment. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, separate from the expectations and projections of others. For empaths, this stage represents a profound transformation in how you relate to your sensitivity, your empathy, your ability to feel. You're no longer trying to get rid of these qualities, no longer seeing them as a curse or a burden. You're learning to work with them consciously, to use them as tools for your own growth and healing rather than as ways to avoid yourself by focusing on others. In this stage, boundaries become natural. Not something you have to constantly enforce or defend, but something that emerges organically from a deep knowing of who you are and what you will and will not accept in your life. You understand now that boundaries aren't walls you build to keep people out. They're the loving limits you set to keep yourself in, to honor your own energy, to protect your own peace. When someone crosses a boundary, you don't collapse into guilt or shame. You don't question whether you're being too sensitive or too demanding. You simply notice what's happening, communicate clearly, and take action to protect yourself if necessary. The relationships in your life begin to change dramatically. Some people fall away naturally, unable or unwilling to relate to this new version of you who won't play the old roles anymore. And it hurts. Even when you know it's necessary, even when you can see clearly that these relationships were never truly reciprocal, letting go still hurts. Because you're not just letting go of the people, you're letting go of the identity you had in relationship to them. You're letting go of being the savior, the fixer, the one who always has it together, the one who everyone turns to in crisis. You're letting go of being needed in that way. And there's a grief in that, a mourning for the self you used to be even though you know you can never go back. But as some relationships fall away, new ones begin to emerge. People who can meet you as an equal, people who are doing their own work, people who don't need you to fix them or save them or carry their emotional weight, people who can hold space for your feelings just as you hold space for theirs. And these relationships feel different. They feel lighter, more honest, more real. Have you started to notice who stays and who leaves when you finally start choosing yourself? The third stage is powerful, but it's not the end of the journey. Jung understood that individuation wasn't a destination, but an ongoing process, a continual unfolding and deepening into wholeness. For empaths who have done the deep work, who have faced their shadows and reclaimed their power, there is often a calling to something beyond personal healing. A sense that all of this pain, all of this transformation, was preparing you for something larger, something that transcends your individual life and connects you to the collective healing of humanity. This is where most teachings about empaths stop. They help you understand your sensitivity. They guide you through healing your wounds. They teach you how to set boundaries and reclaim your power. And that's valuable, essential even. But there's a dimension beyond empowerment that few people talk about because few people reach it. It's not that it's reserved for special people or spiritual elites. It's that the path to this dimension requires a willingness to die to everything you know, to release even your empowered self, to step into a space that can only be described as the void, the liminal, the between. Jung called this the transcendent function, the ability to hold the tension of opposites and allow something new to emerge from that tension. For empaths who reach this level, you're no longer just navigating between absorbing everything and protecting yourself from everything. You've found a third way, a middle path that allows you to remain open and sensitive while also being completely grounded in yourself. You've learned to transmute energy, not just manage it. You can walk into a room full of pain and chaos, feel all of it, acknowledge all of it, and somehow, through your mere presence, help transform it without taking it on. This isn't something you do consciously or deliberately. It's something you become. Your nervous system has been rewired through years of shadow work and healing. Your energy field has shifted to a different frequency. You're no longer operating from survival mode or even from empowerment mode. You're operating from being mode, from a place of such deep centeredness and presence that you become a tuning fork for others, helping them find their own center simply by being in your field. people will start to notice something different about you, though they might not be able to articulate what it is. You're not trying to help them or fix them, yet they feel better after being around you. You're not giving them advice or telling them what to do, yet somehow they leave with more clarity. You're not absorbing their pain, yet they feel heard and witnessed in a way that allows them to process their own emotions more effectively. This is the gift of the integrated empath, the person who has transmuted their wound into wisdom, their sensitivity into sacred service. But this stage also comes with its own challenges, its own loneliness. Because you're living between worlds now, not quite fitting in with people who are still operating from unconscious patterns, but also not quite fitting in with people who are still in the struggle of the second stage. You're in a space that very few people understand or can relate to. And there's a profound solitude in that, a sense of walking a path that has no map, no guidebook, no clear markers to show you that you're going the right way. Jung himself experienced this loneliness, this sense of being a bridge between the conscious and unconscious realms, between the mundane world and the archetypal world, between what is and what wants to emerge. In this final stage, beyond empowerment, you learn to trust the mystery. You stop trying to understand everything, to figure everything out, to have all the answers. You develop a relationship with the unknown, with the void, with the silence that exists beneath all the noise and chaos of the world. And in that silence, you begin to hear something that you couldn't hear before. A guidance that doesn't come from your mind or your emotions or your past experiences. A knowing that emerges from a deeper source, what Jung might call the self with a capital S. The divine center of your being that was there before you were wounded and will be there after you've healed. This is not a passive stage. You're still engaged with life, still in relationships, still facing challenges and difficulties. But you're relating to all of it differently. There's a spaciousness in you now, a capacity to hold whatever arises without being consumed by it. You've learned that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your past, not your wounds, not even your gifts. You are the awareness that witnesses all of it, the consciousness that holds all of it, the presence that remains unchanged no matter what's happening on the surface. And from this place, your purpose begins to reveal itself, not as something you have to figure out or strive for or achieve, but as something that flows naturally from who you've become. Maybe you become a healer or a teacher or a guide for others who are walking the path you've walked. Maybe you create art or write words or build communities that help others feel less alone. Maybe you simply live your life with such authenticity and presence that you become a living example of what's possible when someone does the deep work of becoming whole. Whatever form it takes, your purpose is no longer about fixing or saving or helping others in the way you once tried to do. It's about embodying your truth, living from your center, and trusting that your very existence, your very being, is contributing to the healing and evolution of consciousness itself. This is what it means to be an integrated empath. This is the gift that emerges from years of struggle and darkness and transformation. This is where your journey has been leading you all along. So wherever you are on this path, whether you're just beginning to wake up to the patterns that have been running your life, whether you're deep in the darkness of the second stage, whether you're tasting the freedom of empowerment, or whether you're being called into something beyond what you can name or understand, I want you to know that you're not alone. Your journey matters. Your healing matters. Your transformation is not just personal, it's collective. Every step you take toward wholeness creates a ripple in the consciousness of humanity. And I'm so grateful that you've stayed with me through this entire exploration. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in these stages, I'd love to hear about your experience. Where are you on this journey right now? What's the hardest part for you? What's been the most surprising discovery? Share your story in the comments below because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today to feel less alone in their own struggle. And if you found value in this, consider subscribing to this channel and sharing this video with someone who might need it. Sometimes we don't know how much we need to hear something until we hear it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this sacred work. Thank you for choosing to become whole.